Hey guys, welcome back to another Star Wars book review where it's my goal to look at the Star Wars Legends material for the very first time and discuss it here on the channel. Last time we looked at the second installment in the Lando Calrissian Adventures trilogy, Lando Calrissian and the Flame Wind of Ocean. And now we're going to be looking at the final installment in that trilogy, Lando Calrissian and the StarCave of ThonBoka. Lando Calrissian and the StarCave of ThonBoka was released in 1983 along with the previous two novels, and was written once again by L. Neil Smith. And this time we follow Lando Calrissian and the droid Vufi Ra as they go out on a mission to rescue a group of ancient aliens as they are being pursued by Roker Gepta, an ancient sorcerer that is out to get them from the previous two novels. Guys, if you've been watching my other Star Wars book reviews, you will know that I've been really harsh when it comes to L. Neil Smith's books, specifically when it comes to his writing style. I have not really enjoyed his writing style overall, but I can say that I think he improved with his second novel. That first novel, I just really had a lot of problems with. A lot of it had to do with the writing style, the characterization of Lando Calrissian, and some of the jokes. But he did improve his writing when it came to the second book, and so that left me hopeful that the third novel could really knock it out of the park, or could at least be as good as that second book was, which I did really enjoy. And reading this book, it exceeded all my expectations, and it was just an absolute blast of a book that I enjoyed from beginning to end, and I could not believe that this was the exact same writer that wrote the previous two novels, specifically the first novel in this trilogy. I mean, it's like night and day. It seems that this time around that Smith really took into consideration some of the complaints, or at least the problems, that were present in the first two novels. Now, you guys might not know this, but Del Rey really had Smith on a tight schedule when it came to releasing these books. He didn't have very much time to refine and tweak these books to his complete liking, as was the same problem that the writer of the Han Solo Adventures had to deal with as well. And so I'm going to give him a little slack there. But I think that he was able to improve upon what he had written previously and does some nice twists and turns with some problems that I had in those two books and flips it on its head. Now, I will say that he doesn't fix every problem that was prevalent in the first two books. The writing style is still a little bit awkward at times, but I just found this book really enjoyable, and it had a lot of heart going into it. And also, I was really happy that he took stuff from the first novel and the second novel and evolved them, and really made this book feel like a true ending to a trilogy. It made it feel like these three books are really interconnected, whereas the Han Solo Adventures was very much a separate story for, each book. But this one felt like one complete story. And so anyway, let's get into my positives. Well, the first positive that I want to discuss is the part that really made me say, I love this book, and it has to do with the character of Vufi Ra. Now, you guys will know, if you've watched my other videos, that one of the annoying things that I hated in the previous two Lando books was that Vufi Ra keeps calling Lando Master. And Lando has to keep reiterating that, don't call me Master. And it happens so often, and that continues in this book. But they do something a little bit different with it. We learned that Vufi Ra's previous master before Lando tried to get him to call him Master, and he wouldn't. But yet he calls Lando Master, which I found really interesting and made me think about it in a whole different way. It's a small little change, but it shows that Vufi Ra really likes Lando and thinks of him as, a better person than the person that previously owned him. Now, let me get into the real meat of what I love about this book, and that is that it's truly not even really a Lando story. In fact, Lando and Vufi Ra In fact, it's more of a Boofy Raw story, if you think about it. In fact, this entire trilogy is more about Boofy Raw in particular. But, as I was saying before I got off track, that the story is really about the villains of this book, and there are three villains in particular, or at least two antagonists and one that's kind of behind the shadows a little bit. And that's something that I haven't discussed a lot in talking about this trilogy, is the villain of this series. Rucker Gepta is the villain of this series, and he was in the previous two novels, and he really hasn't had that much of a presence until this final book, where we really delve into what he really is, and that is simply he's a sorcerer. That's a super weird thing to deal with. We're dealing with, you know, the Star Wars universe where the Force exists, which is basically the magic of the Star Wars universe. But yet, we have this sorcerer that is using magic. It doesn't say it's the Force, it just says magic. And that's something that's kind of fun about these earlier Star Wars novels, that, like, you didn't really have all the stuff there for what was the rules of the Star Wars universe quite yet. So, you know, Smith puts magic into Star Wars that isn't just the Force, and I think that's kind of fun, and it made Gepta really an interesting and fun character, as he's wanting revenge on Lando Calrissian and Boofy Raw for what they've done to him in the previous two novels. But also, we have this other character that wants to kill Boofy Raw specifically because he destroyed his entire civilization many years ago, and he has a vendetta, and he wants revenge. And then we have this other character that pops up from the first Lando book, who is the person that originally owned Boofy Raw and sold him to Lando. And he wants to kill both Lando and Boofy Raw because it turns out that this character actually is the one that caused the great devastation to that one guy's, you know, entire civilization, and is really the cause of it all. And so we've got these three villains, these three antagonists that are all on the hunt for Lando Calrissian, and it comes with so much fun and so much great dialogue and some just great character moments. We spend a lot of time with these villain characters that they truly do become the main characters of the story. And I think that really helps the story overall this time, because it feels like something is going on at every moment in the story, which was a complaint that I had with the first two books, feeling that the second act of the stories didn't have much going on, but there's a lot going on in this book in particular, and I really loved that Smith was doing this. Also, we get answers as to who Boofy Raw is and where he comes from with the introduction of this character called The One and the others, and I thought, you know, this was really interesting because he belongs to a group of aliens that are also robotic, that were created by beings that looked like them, and I thought that was really cool, and it delves into that, and I thought that was so much fun that we were finally getting answers to stuff, you know, we were just, you know, talking a little bit about in the first book, where, you know, Boofy Raw doesn't know where he comes from, and by the end of this book, he does. Also, the final battle in this book is extremely epic, if a little anticlimactic, with how everything gets resolved pretty quickly. And, you know, that could be a complaint for some people, but I think it worked overall for, you know, the short time frame that this book is dealing with and the short read that it is. Also, I felt really sad at the end of this book when we finally had to say goodbye to Boofy Raw, as Lando goes out on his own and leaves Boofy Raw behind so that he can join his other family, and I thought that was a really sweet way to end this trilogy, and it made it all worthwhile. As for negatives with this book, I touched a little bit on them, and that is the fact that I think the finale of the book is a little rushed, even though I did enjoy it overall. Lando still doesn't feel quite like the Lando Calrissian that we know and love. I still can't picture the actors playing this Lando at all, but it didn't bother me too much since he is not in the book as much as in the previous two books. Also, there will be little annoyances here and there for people, like the whole idea that magic exists in the Star Wars universe, unless that's something that is in the books going forward and they evolve that a little bit, then, I'll completely shut up about that. But really, that's all the negatives I have with this book. I thought this was a blast of a read. It really surprised me. It took everything that I was really unsure about with the previous two books, flipped it on its head and did something completely new, and it was just really fun, really satisfying, and as a way to end the original Del Rey era of Star Wars, I think this is a great way to end it. But anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm going to give Lando Calrissian and the StarCave of ThonBoka an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend this Lando book in particular. I think it's a very good read. It's very exciting, but I think that it's worthwhile to read the previous two novels to really understand what is going on, even though I don't love those novels to the extent that I loved this book. But yeah, guys, with all that said, I have finally finished the first 10 books of the Star Wars Legends material that were originally released by Del Rey. Now, I will be moving on eventually to Heir to the Empire, but before that, I do want to make a ranking video basically doing a best of worst of what I thought of this particular Del Rey era. So look forward to that video coming soon. Look forward to my review of Heir to the Empire coming out sometime later. But thank you guys once again for watching. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next review.